Welcome back to Coffee with Carl. I've been thinking since the last time, this might all sound a bit abstract at the moment. How can we get it tangible? If you think about it, talking about the nothing box and what this is all about, trying to think outside the box. That really defines the whole point of Coffee with Carl. While we're free for a few moments, we can try and think outside the box. But even when we do that, a lot of these ideas might sound a little bit highfalutin, not in touch with reality. Well, consider for instance that the world is composed of hard-working people, everybody trying to make ends meet, raising families and so on and so forth. But what is the concept of work when regarded from the point of view of the nothing box? Well, actually, it's almost the opposite of what's going on. We work, or rather, work exists to remove the necessity of itself. We work in order to not work. It's a bit like the song about the railway workers. We built the railroad now, brother, can you spare a dime? There's a sense in which this whole inertia principle and the nothing box that has become this huge thing in our lives actually infiltrates into our lives in a very direct way. How many people are finding that they need to work harder and harder in order to make ends meet? It's because somewhere at the end of the line there's someone who's discovered the secret of maximum return for minimum effort. So ultimately, doing nothing at all is virtuous when it produces a maximum return. Here one can think of investment income and things like that. It seems as if the real work is buy a house and rent it out. Then the house will work for you. There was an advert a little while ago showing a guy sitting there like me. In fact, he was asleep. And the voiceover said, "This man is working hard. His money is working for him." So there's a sense in which you can see how these are no abstract ideas. They relate. Oh, message with someone's objecting. So coming back to Kant, he's now trying to put into place a mechanism that will allow science to flourish. Well, how do you go about that? Well, as I mentioned, one way was to denigrate the big guns that seemed to have some kind of authority at the time, which he successfully did. But now he's got to overlay the system as it works. Now, how it worked then was by a hermetic principle, as above, so below. And what is considered as above, Kant recognised as spiritual concerns, and he said about them that while we may believe in all of them, we can know nothing about their workings with regard to their secret cause. This is what he said about the higher levels. And then he goes on to say, as for Newton, he said, here's an interesting thing. He hasn't put a mechanism in place. It's a something I know not what, this gravity, don't know what it is, and it works on ground level. So if you think about it, what he's actually saying, as above we don't know, so below we don't know. And here he had a mechanism with which to overlay the system already in place, ruled over by more or less a religious autocracy, and now he's stormed the high ground, so to speak. He said, you don't know how it works above, and we don't know how it works below. Let's make ignorance a virtue. Which is quite interesting, because now, in a later letter, you'll find it in the book if you ever bother to read it or look it up, he writes to someone and says, as for this business about the secret causes, I'm not really interested. No, he wasn't. What he was interested in was establishing science as a way of thinking in its own right. So now when you think of the heavens and the earth, as above, i.e. the stars, the planets, so below, the way an apple falls to the ground. It's the same thing. You can call it a force, you can call it monkeys pushing everything around. It really didn't matter, because nobody knows. And to this day, still, nobody knows. Otherwise, why would investment in the technology looking for gravity waves be so huge? It's almost as if, on the one level you can say, if we find gravity waves, we will have a new window on the universe. But on another level, it's saying we need to justify the nothing box. We need to find that it's real. And in fact, it's the further we go into this, the more we realise that it's just thin air. Every time we hear things coming from science, it's always, where's the evidence? But there's a kind of silence surrounding the firstborn of science, which is gravity. It's eerie. There is nothing there that's substantial. There's lots of words, there's lots of theories, but nothing that's substantial. Which is a very, very worrying thing, because it's connected to how we work in the real world. It seems as if there's something missing. It's very difficult to understand what it is, because we've been working with the nothing box for so long, we think that that's how it really is. Actually, when you look at the female mind, where all things are connected, there's an element of that that's missing here. When we think of things being connected, the general word for that is holistic thinking. And most of what we're looking at here is positivistic thinking. So we live kind of schizophrenic lives, because most of the time we do see how things are connected. But positivistic thinking, we keep them all separate, like different bank accounts for different interests. So where do you go from here? We're moving away from Kant. Now we've got to come right up to the modern era. And the problems with gravity, we assume, have been effectively dealt with by Einstein, who, prior to him, it was well known that we didn't know what gravity was, we just had a mathematical model. It's now assumed that we do have a model, something real, something tangible, called the theory of relativity. But we have to remember that however novel it may appear, it's still, although it supersedes Newton, it incorporates him. And it'll be interesting to see, if we look at it in more detail, actually what it's telling us. So that's for next time. Cheers.